اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء بنت رسول الله قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قال: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: وعليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا عبت من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيت بالكساء اليماني فغطيت به، وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلو كأن النحر البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل ما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدا، السلام عليك يا من اختار الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال: عليك السلام يا ولدي يا شافي أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، ها هما ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال له: وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا عبت يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال: عليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بزعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وعوم بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم ما إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن آداؤهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فجل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على. فقال له عز وجل: يا ملائكتي يا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء خمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال أمين جبرائيل: يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على. فقال جبرائيل: يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لك. فحبت علي الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يكرك السلام ويخصك بالتهية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أنا لي أن أدخل معهم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليه السلام: يا أمين وحي الله، نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لي أبي: إن الله قد أهوى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليطهر عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزل عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم ملائكته واستغفرت لهم إلا يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا فرج الله هما ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما ولا تالب الحاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجة. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيتنا فعزوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على سورة مباركة الفاتحة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله هو الله أكبر ولله الحمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله. هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح. هيا على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربنا الله أكبر. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع له لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واحشرنا معهم والأعلى عداءهم. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. محمد. لا إله إلا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. اللهم صل على أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، وأن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير عمل، حي على خير عمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع على لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع على لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. استغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع على لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع له لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. إلهي أنت كما نحب فاجعلنا كما تحب حق محمد وآله الطاهرين. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله وخير أسماء الحسنى لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. فرج. لا إله إلا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها اشفع لنا يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها اشفع لنا. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها اشفع لنا. يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التكي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النكي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي الأسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله يا وسي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها اشفع لنا يا وجيها عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله حاجات. يا سادتي ومواليه إني توجهت بكم عمتي وأدتي ليوم فقري وهاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعدى ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد. ब मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद सलवात। नजफ की जो गलियों में जाना हुए दिल, अदब से तू पहले जरी चूम लेना। बता दे न जो है मुझ पे जो गुजरी, मेरी दास्ता तू अली से ही कहना। नजफ की जो गलियों में जाना हुए दिल, अदब से तू पहले जरी चूम लेना। जब दाखिल तू होगा रोज़े के अंदर, जरी को पकड़ कर दो आंसू बहाना। नजफ के शहंशाह तुम फरियाद सुन लो, मेरी कश्ती मौला किनारे लगाना। नजफ की जो गलियों में जाना हुए दिल, अदब से तू पहले जरी चूम लेना। बता दे न जो है मुझ पे जो गुजरी, मेरी दास्ता तू अली से ही कहना। तबाही ने मुझ पे जो घेरा है डाला, सभी ने फिराया है मुँह मुझ से मौला। न परवाह है मुझको किसी की भी मौला, रहम की नज़र जो तुम मुझ पे ही रखना। नजफ की जो गलियों में जाना हुए दिल, अदब से तू पहले जरी चूम लेना। बता दे न जो है मुझ पे जो गुजरी, मेरी दास्ता तू अली से ही कहना। मैं मांगू तो बस एक तुम्ही से ही मांगू, झुकाना न मुझको किसी के भी आगे। मैं मांगू तो बस एक तुम्ही से ही मांगू, झुकाना न मुझको किसी के भी आगे। सभी को मिला है तुम्हारे ही दर से, मुझे तेरे दर से न खाली फिराना। नजफ की जो गलियों में जाना हुए दिल, अदब से तू पहले जरी चूम लेना। बता दे न जो है मुझ पे जो गुजरी, मेरी दास्ता तू अली से ही कहना। जो बिगड़ी मुकद्दर तो बिगड़ा ज़माना, ज़माने में अब तो नहीं कोई मेरा। जो बिगड़ी मुकद्दर तो बिगड़ा ज़माना, ज़माने में अब तो नहीं कोई मेरा। सुबह शाम मौला है सबकी ये फरियाद, अदब से तू पहले कदम चूम लेना। नजफ की जो गलियों में जाना हुए दिल, अदब से तू पहले जरी चूम लेना। बता दे न जो है मुझ पे जो गुजरी, मेरी दास्ता तू अली से ही कहना। पर मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद सलवात। सूरत मुबातुल फातिहा।
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On this joyous occasion of Eid-e-Mubahila, let us send our salutations to our Holy Prophet and his pure household with the loud Nare Salawat. Surah Fatiha is requested for all marhumin listed on the screen, as well as all other marhumin. Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. Dua Shfa Maris is requested for all those in need here and elsewhere, as well as those listed on the screen. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Ya Allah. Let us now invite Sayyid Hasan Rizvi to please come forward for tonight's majlis. Wa Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Eid Mubarak to you and your families on this joyous occasion as we celebrate Eid-e-Mubahila tonight on the 24th of Dhul'Hijjah. This is one of these events, just like Eid al-Ghadir, where the history is undisputed. No one, not an Orientalist, not somebody from a different Muslim background, no one argues about the actual historical details. It's pretty much the same story. What is discussed and debated or argued is what the actual deeper meanings and the takeaways are from an event like this. And they range from many different places, right? Some just say, look, this was simply a dispute and an argument between the Christians and the Muslims, and that's it. Right? So they reduce a lot of the value just by saying it was just some simple argument in history, and that's it. Others say that no, it's a bit more than that. This was to show the dominance of Islam over all other faiths, including Christianity at that time. Others go a bit more beyond that, and they say, okay, we understand that there was something more, because obviously only 5 individuals were involved. And these 5 individuals, okay, they have some importance, we're not going to deny that. But they were just there because they were close to the Prophet, and that's it. And even some Shias, they have the same sort of idea, where they may not, and we may not understand the true value and the true deeper meaning, or at least one of the deeper meanings of what Eid al-Mubahila actually represents. Why did the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt have to go to such extreme, measures to go and prove the dominance of Islam and the truth of Islam over Christianity? Why? And it goes beyond simply saying that these 5 individuals are very, very important. There's something about that importance. There's something about their significance within Islam that, inshallah, we want to bring out tonight. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So in order to help us try to think about Mubahala in a different way, I don't want us to think about it as some historical event. I don't want us to think about it as some great Shia thing that we like a lot of other events and ayat of Quran and riwayat, we keep them in our pockets, and anytime somebody says, oh, you Shias XYZ, we take them out and throw them at Sunnis. I don't want to use it like that. I want us to think about it in a different way. And I want us to think about this dispute between the Prophet and these Christians as a court case. Think of it as a legal dispute. Now, let me explain why. If you think about the parties like this, each of the characters and each of the elements involved, you'll see is very analogous to how a court case actually plays out. The same way something would take place in a court here today, these same sort of players that are involved, it's the same thing. So, the easiest one to figure out is who's the judge. Well, obviously it's Allah, right? 2 parties are coming together and they're saying, let Allah be the judge of who's right and wrong. Right? They're both coming together to mutually pray to Allah to curse the other party. Allah, whoever's lying here, curse them. Right? Your la'an, your adhab, your punishment needs to come down on the one who's lying. So obviously the judge in this case is Allah. And there's no more of a Supreme Court than you can get over here. Now, what exactly is, or who are the ones who are on trial? So normally in a normal case you have a plaintiff and defendant. Over here technically you have, we'll call them 2 plaintiffs. Right? And they're also playing defendants as well. They're a plaintiff, each party, meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, is a plaintiff because he's pleading a case on behalf of Islam, right? And what he's promoting, and him being a prophet. On the other side, the Christians are saying, no, the case is the Trinity. It's Jesus, na'udhu billah, as the Son of God, right? This is the way that it needs to be thought about. So the actual people who are there representing is each side is Rasulullah and these Christian bishops. So they are in a sense, they're both plaintiffs, and at the same side, they're also kind of defending their ideas too, right? So they're accusing one another. Now, normally, if you've seen all these court dramas too, normally in the background, right? Because normally you have lawyers or the plaintiffs and defendants, ahead of what they literally call the bar, right? They're in the front with the judge in his chamber or on the bench. And then behind that literal bar is basically the audience, right? They're spectators. They're people who, on TV shows and things like that you see, and this happens in real life obviously too, where anybody who wants to come and just watch, right? The public can come and just observe. Normally who fills those spots are friends or family members of the plaintiff or the defendant, right? They come to show their support. They come there to give up some, morale boost, something like that. And of course, media as well, to kind of record and see what's happening there. So in this case, we don't really have spectators, so to speak, except for those who knew what was taking place, but they actually didn't come to see it. So on one side, you have the Christians, right? Because these bishops that came, according to most historians, they came with a larger delegation, right? There was about, I think, 30-odd, some of them. But not every single one of them, according to one historical report. It's only a few, maybe 3 of these actual bishops that came out for the Mubahala. Not everybody did. So from Najran all the way to see the Prophet, right? There was about 30 or so of them, but for the actual Mubahala, only 3 of them actually came forward. So we could say to some degree that those other 20-odd some Christians were kind of just spectators, right? They weren't actually involved in doing this Mubahala. And the same thing for the Muslims. So for the Muslims, right, after all that ruckus and the whole argument took place inside the masjid, when the Mubahala challenge was initiated by the Prophet, some of the Muslims wanted to join the Prophet, right? Some of the more famous companions too. They said, no, let us come and let us join. He said, no, this is not for you. You stay back, right? This is not something you need to get involved in. So they stayed back, and in a sense, they were also spectators too. So now, again, setting the stage, we have Allah as the judge, we have Rasulullah and the Christian bishops as these 2 kind of plaintiffs arguing their case, right, in front of a judge, in front of Allah. And then you have the Muslims and Christians as spectators trying to see and waiting for the result. What will the actual judgment be over here? Now, that's the question. Well, what is the judgment? Well, the judgment here is very simple. Is whoever is a liar, la'na gets descended upon them. Right? La'na meaning the curse or the damnation or the removal of mercy by Allah. So most of us know, right? Mubahala and la'na, they're basically the same sort of idea. Right? La'na, mubahala or bahl, it's this cursing or a dua that you're praying to Allah to curse somebody else, right? Mubahala literally means to curse one another. It's a prayer to curse the other party. Now, what's interesting about this point too is, a lot of people, we still have individuals to this day who, among, Shia speakers who still deny the concept of la'na, right? I mean, not just lay people, I mean actual speakers or so-called scholars. So, how could such a merciful prophet and merciful members of the Ahlul Bayt, how could they go out and curse people like this? It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't flow with my idea of a merciful, loving individual. How can Rahmatul lil Alameen do something like this? Well, we already said that the history here is undeniable. Nobody denies that Mubahala took place. And nobody denies also that Rasulullah is the one who came forward and suggested, yeah, let's go out and do this Mubahala too. So how somebody can have that in their head and square this away that, you can't have la'na, but the Prophet's initiating it, it seems very difficult. Even beyond that, the Christians agreed. The Christians said, yeah, let's go and do this. Meaning that within the Christian faith, this concept of la'na or praying to curse somebody else existed too. And in fact, right, we know that one of the things that happened at Mubahala, when the Prophet came and, got down on his knees and began to start, right before he did, one of the Christian bishops turned to the other one and said, the way that he's going down is the way that the previous prophets used to perform their Mubahala. So he noticed right away something's off. How did somebody like him, if he's a false prophet, how did he figure out how the previous prophets did their Mubahala? So the Christians, they had la'na and Mubahala within their faith. Obviously, we have the same thing too, right? And throughout the Quran, the idea of la'na is mentioned. In the riwayat, it's mentioned. This historical event of Mubahala is there too. On top of that, this also exists within the Jewish faith as well. This idea of, cursing or la'na, whatever you want to call it, it's there too. Right? I just want to make a short side note and describe that a little bit. If you can send the salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, according to some Jewish scholars, there's this prayer or blessing that they recite called Birkat Haminim in Hebrew. Birkat sounds very similar to barakat, right? So Birkat literally means blessing in Hebrew. And Haminim means either sectarians or heretics. So it's literally, they are making this dua. They call it a blessing, but it's a dua against people who are off of their sect. People who are heretical, who are not going with the tradition and the Orthodox Jewish faith. And in history, this used to be performed by people of the Jewish faith 6 days a week, 3 times a day. They would have these different du'as that they would do, and this would be one of them. 3 times a day, 6 days a week, they'd be doing their version of la'na, which is very interesting, right? People get riled up and we do it, sometimes 10 days out of the year on Ashura or in Muharram, people get upset there. And I'm like, what about the Jews though? They were doing it, 6 times 3. It's a lot. But, it's interesting. The Jews were using this, some classical Jewish scholars said that they were doing this against Christians because they believed that Christians weren't following the right faith. So this blessing that they were reciting, or this la'na, was against Christians, and it was also against Jews that were not following the proper Jewish faith, heretical Jews. So I actually brought the translation over here to one of, at least one translation. Figured, let's hear what this sounds like. Because again, in the minds of some people, they have this idea that, Muslims, why are we so harsh? Why is everything, this la'na stuff doesn't make sense. It's so rude and mean. It doesn't make sense. Like, hold on, other faiths have these kind of things too. Let me read for you the translation of this blessing of the heretics, and you see if it sounds familiar to anything else that we might have. So, and for the slanderers, or the heretics or sectarians, let there be no hope, and may all the evil in an instant be destroyed, and all your enemies be cut down swiftly. And the evil ones uproot and break and destroy and humble soon in our days. Blessed are you, Lord, who breaks down enemies and humbles the proud. This is a pretty harsh dua. Doing 3 times a day, 6 times, 6 days a week. And it's funny because according to some rabbinical scholars, the context of this was while they were praying for individuals, whether governments, other Jews or Christians, anybody who was stopping the Jewish state from being built, a Jewish utopian society from being built, right? Classically speaking. So anybody who did that, this is the sort of thing that they had. And there's other version of this too, where in a version of it, it said, hurry up and bring our government. I'm like, it's their version of saying al-ajal, al-ajal, right? Same thing. So the reason for me bringing this up is this. When some people, they look at our riwayat, or they look at some of these du'as that we have, Ziyarat Ashura, things like this, they call it into question. This is not merciful, it doesn't make sense. Why are Muslims like this? Nobody else does this. Like, hold on. How do you deny Mubahila, number one, where the Christians and Muslims both agreed to this? Christians had it in their tradition, and Jews have it there as well. So when somebody is coming and criticizing these ideas, they're not just criticizing traditional Islam, they're criticizing Christianity and Judaism, meaning this Abrahamic thing. And these are the same people who are usually all pro-unity, we all want to be one, interfaith, all of this. Well, if you want to be interfaith, this one thing that actually ties us together is that we all mutually understand that sometimes when things get to a certain level, sometimes you got to bring out the la'na, right? There's no other choice there. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. By the way, I'm not advocating for everybody here to go out and do la'na when you disagree with somebody. That's not what I mean. Sometimes that happens where, you disagree with somebody about some little issue, like, okay, you want to go out for Mubahila right now? Like, no, that's not how we use it. Right? So it's just interesting to me when I saw this, the full rich history. You can go on YouTube this yourself. Go and Google this Birkat Haminim, of how rabbinical scholars just have lectures and lectures about the history of this, literally, this dua against people who are, heretics within their own faith, right? Very, very interesting. So, something that binds us all together, but you see these individuals who are trying to cut things out from our own faith, they're not just cutting it out from Islam, they're cutting out things from Christianity and Judaism as well. So there's a streak that many of these types of individuals have. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, so let's go back to what we were saying. In this court case, Allah is the judge. Rasulullah and the Christian bishops, they are the plaintiffs, right? Because when the Christians came, they were arguing with the Holy Prophet. So these are the direct plaintiffs. These are the ones who are arguing with each other. So they're the ones now in the Mubahila that are going to pray against each other. Now what's happening over here, right? We know the judgment. The judgment is, they're both saying, Ya Allah, whoever is the liar here, your adab, your la'an, your punishment has to come on them. Right? So only one of us can be telling the truth. So that means one of us is going to taste that la'na, right? Who's it going to be? So now, who actually is subject to a judgment? Now, go back to this analogy of a court case. Right? We have plaintiffs and then you have spectators. People coming for moral support who are behind the bar, and then people who are actually sitting, right, with the judge, who are the plaintiffs or the defendants. When a judge passes their ruling, who actually feels that, who is it applicable to? Only the plaintiff and the defendants, right? That's it. That's the only where it goes. If you come and support somebody, right, if there's some court case happening, and you're sitting there, and let's say you're coming to support the defendant, if that person loses and they're found guilty, you don't feel anything from it. It might hurt you, but it's not like that punishment's going to come down on you. It's not like you've lost the court case yourself. It has nothing to do with you. Now, the Muslims who are spectating and the Christians who are spectating, they're not there in the la'na, right? So technically, it's only the Prophet and these Christian bishops who are there who are doing la'na on each other, because they're the ones who are making these claims. The Muslims who are sitting back in Mecca and Medina, and the Christians who are also back, they're technically not involved in this Mubahila. So they're just spectators. In a sense, they don't have any skin in the game, right? They're not there for it. But you see, it's not just the plaintiffs who are being involved in this judgment. It's not just Rasulullah versus Christian bishops. There's something alongside. It's the claims that they're making, which are also on trial. When these Christians are coming, it's not just the Christian bishops who are going to be subject to be called liars, but it's their aqidah which is also on trial. The idea of the Trinity, that's what's on trial. And the same way for Rasulullah, it's not just him as a person being on trial, it's him claiming to be a prophet and claiming that there is no such thing as a son of God. Meaning it's Trinity versus Tawheed. That's what's actually on trial over here. It's the Prophet who's going to feel if he's wrong, which of course he's not. If he's wrong, then the la'na comes on him, but it's not just him. The whole argument of Tawheed goes down the drain. And for the Christians, the same thing. It's not just those bishops. If they lose, then the Trinity goes down the drain. So it's those physical, personal plaintiffs, along with their aqeedah, that's also there too. Now you can see where there's actually a difference. Beyond those physical claims, there's something deeper there that's actually on trial. When we're looking at their aqeedah that's on trial, what's actually there? It's not simply this idea of Tawheed and Trinitarianism that's on trial, but because look, neither of the parties denies God exists. If you ask both of them, even if you ask a Christian today, they say, look, there's only one God. Christians believe they're monotheists. Nobody says we believe in three gods. So in that sense, Islam or the Prophet and the Christians, there's no disagreement there. So it's not strictly this superficial type of aqeedah and theology that's on trial, but specifically there's two things that are on trial. One is tawassul and one is ibadah. Tawassul and ibadah. Why? Because it's not, again, that God being the creator or God being the one who has given everything existence. That's not what's on trial. They are both arguing for who has the right to speak on behalf of God. Who is the intermediary and the wasila between insan, between humans and Allah. For the Christians, they said, look, our tawassul is through Isa, so therefore our ibadah comes through him too. Everything goes to him. And that's how they've gotten up in this 3-in-1. But for Rasulullah, he's saying, no, there is no tawassul through Isa like that. There's no ibadah like that. The tawassul and ibadah as a nabi, it has to happen through me. So the ibadah that you think you're doing is incorrect. Why? Because I will be the one who tells you how to worship Allah, not by yourself. And then you see, he's like, you know what? It's not just me who's on trial here. If Tawheed is fully on trial, if Tawassul and Ibadah is fully on trial, then Rasulullah says, then I'm not the only plaintiff now. It's not just me who's on trial. If you really want to understand Tawheed and you really want to understand Tawassul and Ibadah, then it has to come through 5 of us. It comes through Muhammad al-Mustafa, Ali al-Murtada, Hasan al-Mujtaba, Fatima al-Zahra, and Hussein Shahid bi Karbala, alayhim as-salatu was-salam. You Christians think that Isa is your way to God, that's it. Your Ibadah, your Tawassul, that's it. That's the way you're getting there. Rasulullah is saying, I'm making these claims, but it's not just me that is the source of getting to Allah. These 4 other individuals, us as the Ahlul Kisa, as the Ahlul Khamsa, these 5, us 5 personalities, we are the ones who are coming on trial here. We are the ones who are the form and the wasila. This is tawassul to Allah. This is how you do it. You want to find out how to perform ibadah? You want to know how to worship Allah? You have to come to us. We're the ones who are going to tell you how to do it. So it's not just that Rasulullah says, oh, I love my family. I want to show how strong my claim is, so let me bring my family too. He says, no, they are part and parcel of this claim. They are part and parcel of wilayah and tawheed. Because if you want to understand real tawheed, you have to come through them. There is no other way outside of that. And that's why when they start coming down, when the Christians see these personalities, right away they're like, there's no way we can continue with this. It's not just that they see, a bunch of illuminated faces and they're done. It's not just that they're like, who would bring their family here? That doesn't make sense. They're like, these personalities are all coming together as one unit, one individual. There is nothing, we've never seen anything like this before. This is not a claim of somebody who lies. And then what do the Christians understand here too? If we go forward with this Mubahila, then all of the Christians will get wiped out. Even though not all the Christians were the plaintiffs here. But he realizes that, look, we're all going to get wiped out. Why? Because our aqidah is on trial. Our form of tawassul is on trial. If they come and they do Mubahila to us, then Christianity is going to be done. So we better cut our losses and get out of here. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, what then is a sort of contemporary application of something like this, right? What do we understand from Mubahila? The argument here is not about God himself. It's not about truth by itself. It's the idea of how does somebody get the truth? What is the process what is the way that you and I obtain the truth? How do we get there? Who are the ones who are going to be our wasa'il? Who are going to be our intermediaries to get there? On that day, Rasulullah made it very clear, as he made it clear multiple times before. He said, I'm making it clear that the Ahlul Bayt, they are the wasa'il. These are the ones who will get you towards Allah. The contemporary one. Right now, you have arguments between Muslims and non-Muslims, and then within Islam and even within Shias themselves. It doesn't really go back to the idea of what is true and what is God. That might superficially be what they argue, but really it's about how do we get to what is true? How do we understand what is real? On one hand, you have one group that says there's no such thing, there is no truth, there's no reality, do whatever you love. Follow your desires, follow your nafs, right? This sort of postmodern subjective idea. Whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, whatever makes you feel good, go out and do that. So what they're saying is that's the way you get to truth, is you just look within. You just find your own and live your own truth, and that's it. You have another group that says, no, there actually is some truth out there, there's objective reality, and you get that through science, you get that through logic and reason, right? That's your intermediary. But as Muslims, as Shia Muslims, we say, look, all two of those things, they have some point to play. Sometimes your fitrah, your intuition, your heart, your feelings do matter, but in a very, very small amount of places. Logic and reason and science, they also have some role to play, but again, even that scope is limited too. But the whole point of Islam or any religion is to say science and reason and your own feelings, they're going to have a limit. They're mahdud. They don't get you to absolute truth. The only way you get to that absolute truth is when Allah Himself sends down His Khalifa, when Allah sends down a wasila, when Allah sends down His own representatives. And this is the argument from people from the beginning to the end. Habil, Qabil, who's the representative? That's the argument. Shaitan and Allah, what's their argument? Who's the representative? Who's the Khalifa? Every single thing you ask about, every single argument is about wilayah. They'll tell you it's something else, every single time it's about wilayah. Who carries on afterwards? Who represents and gets to talk on behalf of Allah? Or, so that was a Muslim versus non-Muslim. Talk about intra-faith, as we like to say it, right? Among us and the Sunnis, same thing. We're not denying Allah, we don't deny the Quran, we don't deny the Sunnah. We say, okay, but how are we getting to all those things? How do we determine what Allah wants, what Rasulullah actually said? We said, look, He made it clear. Da'watul Ashira, He made it clear. In many riwayat, He made it clear. Ghadir, He made it clear. Mubahila, it's been made clear over and over and over again that who are the ones who are the intermediaries? Who are the ones who speak on behalf of the Prophet? So we've made our case very, very clear. But the ones who didn't, they said, no, we have to start making up things as we go along. Whether we run away to Saqifa and make our own thing up, whether the first Khalifa decides, I'll appoint somebody that I think makes sense. The second one says, you know what, I'll just make a collective ijtihad group or something like that, right? Is what he did. Everybody decided, let's just do whatever we like. None of them, you look at them, they don't quote the Quran, they don't quote the Seerah. They said, we'll decide. So it's always this argument about who gets to talk on behalf of Allah. And you see, if you boil it down, most of them don't actually quote Allah. They don't quote the Quran. They don't quote the Ahlul Bayt. They leave that stuff out. Now, even among Shias, this is also the argument too. Those who speak or claim to speak on behalf of Allah and the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, they'll say, how do we get to this? How do we get to what Allah wants? But in a sense, some of them sound no different than some of these non-Muslims. Why? Because what they're saying is, if you want to find out what Allah wants, just go with what your heart says. Go with what your heart desires. Go with what your fitrah says, your intuition, your dil, right? That's what they say. As some speakers have said, you know, whether you pray with turba or don't, amur or not, whatever, do whatever you feel like. See how you feel if you pray with it or don't pray with it. Yeah, there are some speakers who say this right now. They're going and telling Shias, try praying without a turba, amur, and see how you feel. So now the way to figure out, according to them, is, yeah, just do what you like and see if it makes you feel good. That's how you determine that. Can you imagine any other person saying that? Can you imagine, you know, I know you don't like me talking about food, but can you imagine a dietitian or nutritionist saying, hey, just go eat whatever you like and whatever you enjoy, and that'll be your diet that you stick with? I'm sure many of you would enjoy that kind of diet, but that's probably not good nutritional advice, right? If a personal trainer told you, yeah, go into the gym and do whatever doesn't give you any pain, whatever feels nice, well, you wouldn't do anything then. Because we know no pain, no gain. Gain, yeah. When you go to the gym, the whole point is lactic acid buildup. You want to feel a little bit of a burn during the workout and hopefully afterwards too. Although that's debatable, but whatever, there's different research on that. But if somebody's just going to tell you, do whatever you like, whatever feels good, then what separates an adult from a child? A child, somebody whose nafs is strong, just does whatever it wants. And what you see is that these speakers, that's what they're pushing for. Just follow your nafs, follow your ego, whatever it likes. It's okay, Allah's created you like that. I said, no, Allah did not create us to follow whatever we like. Allah said that there are certain things that you like that I'm going to go against. And there are certain things that you don't like that I'm going to tell you that you have to do. This is the nature of reality. And then beyond that, there are some who say, okay, let's go with whatever science and whatever logic and reason dictate. Well, how far is that going to get you? How many arguments can you actually build off of logic and reason? Tell me, how many rakats can you have in every namaz based on logic and reason and science? Did Newton come down and send some sort of formula that says, yes, based on, this law, that Maghrib has to have 3 rakats? Is there some scientific principle behind that? Tawaf 7 times around the Kaaba, right? Is there some piece of logic? A is B, B is C, A is C? Like that, you're going to figure that out? No. Ibadah comes from wahi. The tawassul is revealed to us because Allah says you won't be able to get this through your own nafs. Your ego won't get to it. In fact, your ego is going to block you. Science and technology and your own intellect and reason, you can use this, but to a limit. It's not going to get you to these higher truths. The only way you get to these higher truths, you can't do it. So that's why we've sent you these khulafa. We've sent you these members of the Ahlul Bayt on purpose, because we know that you don't have access. But we have sent these individuals to you, for you, to make it easier for you. Otherwise, you just be lost over here. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So whenever you see all these, as they're going to happen, and they will continue to happen, disagreements between ulama, scholars and speakers and influencers, whoever, it's never going to be about personalities. It's not going to be about God or the Quran. They might make it seem like that's the case, but it's not. It's about who becomes the intermediary, who gets to talk on behalf of God. How do we get to the irad Allah? How do we get to what Allah really wants? And everybody's claiming something different. Even now, you try to ask somebody, how do we get to what the marja wants? And even there, people will disagree about how that's possible. Because for some people, the maximum that they can rely on is, let's say, the English Tawdi al-Masail, which is fine, or Q&A, which is okay. But those who have access to, let's say, Farsi or Arabic, then for them, their access is obviously a little bit greater. So they have more access to, I would say, more authentic or real information, right? So when we're going through all these, the debates and discussions, don't let the superficial part of these arguments get a hold of us. At the same time, when these sort of disagreements are happening, recognize that it's not simply two parties arguing with one another, and that these two individuals, that are coming and kind of fighting amongst themselves. There's a whole aqeedah that's behind the scenes that you might not realize. Just like with Mubahila, there's all this theological, these presumptions that they're bringing forward, right? Tawheed and Nubuwah and Wilaya on one hand, and the Trinity on the other side, and Christianity in total on one side. For us, when you're looking at speakers, you may not be able to see it, but when they're coming and they're debating ideas, or they're arguing about ideas, again, I'm talking about amongst Shias too, is that there's presumptions and assumptions about the nature of Allah, about the nature of the Quran, about the nature of the Ahlul Bayt. These are things that not everybody's going to be able to pick out. People always say, Hasan, why are you so against us listening to so-and-so speaker? I said, look, I'm not against you. I'm only cautioning you that are you trained enough to see what their presumptions are? Do you know what's going on behind the scenes? I do, because I studied this stuff. Because I know the presumptions, because I know those books, because I studied the books. The teachers that they're quoting, I studied with them. That's how I know that. But you don't know the presumptions that they have. You wouldn't know that because you haven't seen it. So they may not be saying it out loud, but as we talked about last Shawwal, if you remember, at least one group, their whole argument is based on the fact that the Quran and the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, their morality is incomplete, na'udhu billah, and it's left for 1400 years ago. They kind of say it, but they don't say it directly. The whole point is the Quran does not matter anymore. The Ahlul Bayt don't matter anymore. Now the problem is that, hey, if you do that, if that's what you're claiming, then every single other thing comes into question too. Every other piece of Islam is there. And then what's the point of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt anymore? If our intellect and science and technology and whatever it is, and society gets to tell us what is right and wrong, then what's the point of the Quran and Ahlul Bayt or Islam in general then? There is no point. If it's just about being a good person and feeling what's good and right, an atheist can claim to do that too. You don't need Islam anymore. So although we may not see it directly, what these individuals are doing is slowly cutting away principles of Islam until there's nothing left. So what they're actually doing, although they may not see it themselves, right? Maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. What some of these influencers and speakers may not realize is that they are actually performing their own mubahala against the Prophet himself, against Islam itself. Because they're calling into question every single essential and inherent trait of Tawheed, Nubuwwah, Imama, Wilaya, and Ma'ad. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's move on to our Slido quiz. You can recite another Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's see. So we have Project Orange, Kamsoon, Bande Khuda, Collective HIC, Abu Khaybari, Hussein. We have Aristotle. We have Shapi, I guess, or Shop. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Alia, ZK, MNS, ICCI, SD, Mutamassikin, RMJ, Janu. What did I miss? Who just joined that I didn't see? No Name, Mohogo, Z and A. I get SM, Eid-e-Mubahila. Hello World, Underwater Roach, very nice. LOL, Sakina Ilyas Cake. You guys are coming up with the strangest names this time. 32 people. Okay, let's get started. Good luck to everybody. Bismillah. What does Mubahala mean? Does it mean praying for protection from lies, praying to find the truth, praying for a righteous family, or praying for God to curse each other? What does Mubahala mean? Does it have to do with kidh, lying, haqq, truth, righteous family, ahl, or cursing and la'na? 76% of you got it correct. It is praying for Allah's la'an to go on the other side. It's a mutual cursing. The event of Mubahala took place during which period of Rasulullah's life? The beginning, the Meccan period, the middle, right after Hijrah, the end, close to his death, or is it something unknown to historians? When did Mubahala actually take place during his life? Oh. 45, most of you did get this, though. It was close, but yes, it was towards the end of his life. I think it was about 1 to 2 years before he passed away. Where is the event of Mubahala mentioned in the Quran? 361, 567, 1414, or 33:33? And if any of you were paying attention, I don't think it's on the screen right now, but it wasn't on the screen before. I'm glad they took it off. Is it Surah Al Imran, Surah Ma'idah, Surah 14? I don't remember what that is. Ibrahim, maybe? No. And 33 is Ahzab. Oh, looks like you guys were not paying attention. It's Surah An'am, Surah 3. Last, which professional athlete was known as the Great One? Roger Federer, Michael Jordan, Lionel Messi, or Wayne Gretzky? Which professional athlete was known as the Great One? Now, some of you who are WWF fans, or were WWF fans, used to be The Rock, but it doesn't count necessarily, because he stole this title from somebody else. Of course, I didn't expect you guys to get it, because we don't live in a place where you guys know hockey, unless we have any Canadians over here. Then you should have known it was Wayne Gretzky. He was the Great One. No Name, Ahsant. You kept it hidden. 30 seconds, 4 out of 4, good job. Hello World, also 4 out of 4, only 10 seconds behind. Specialist, so close, 1 second behind, also 4 out of 4. Titan Submarine, come on, what kind of name is that? Terrible, very terrible. And you guys say, I have dark jokes, come on. ZNA in 5th place. Oh, you guys are tied. Titan Submarine and ZNA are tied for 4th place. Once again, as a reminder, Thursday night, we are having the community town hall. Slido is open as usual. You can go on there. Send, if you want to be anonymous, although I prefer that you're not anonymous, but send forward your questions, your comments, your suggestions, positive, negative feedback, whatever it is. On that day on Thursday, we'll have the mic system set up for everybody so we can start fielding questions and we can hopefully discuss how we can start improving together as a community. Insha'Allah ta'ala, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ahl baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। ईद-ए-मुबाहिला आपको सबको भी मुबारक हो। एक शेर कहिएगा, नज़म कहिएगा, एक नुक्सा कहिएगा, आपकी खिदमत में मैं पेश करना चाहता हूँ अगर इजाज़त है तो। उसके बाद इंशाल्लाह मनक़बत पढ़ दूँगा 1-2 घंटे के लिए। तो ऐ अल्लाह के बंदे, ऐ अल्लाह के बंदे, क्या उखाड़ लिया तूने? ए अल्लाह के बंदे, क्या उखाड़ लिया तूने? कौन सी ऐसी तीर चला ली तूने जो निशाना सजदा लेके तू फिर रहा है गुरूर के साथ, तकब्बुर के साथ, गली गली। कौन सा ऐसा तीर लगा लिया तूने? क्या उखाड़ लिया तूने जो निशाना सजदा लेके तू फिर रहा है गली गली? अरे बात तो तब बनती है जब वही निशान सजदे पे छोड़ के आए तू। एक दुरूद भेज दे मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद पे। वो अली थे, वो अली है, अली रहेंगे सदा। वो अली थे, वो अली हैं, अली रहेंगे सदा। ना कोई था, ना कोई है, ना हो सका है दर। वो अली थे, वो अली हैं, अली रहेंगे सदा। वो अली थे, वो अली हैं, अली रहेंगे सदा। इमाम ऐसे हुए वो, नमाज खुद है फिदा। इमाम ऐसे हुए वो, नमाज खुद है फिदा। ना हुआ है, ना करेगा कोई यूं सजदा अदा। वो अली थे, वो अली हैं, अली रहेंगे सदा। ना कोई था, ना कोई है, ना होगा कोई ये अदा। वो अली थे, वो अली हैं, अली रहेंगे सदा। अली को सोचना और देखना इबादत है। अली को सोचना और देखना इबादत है। कह रहे हैं ये मोहम्मद ये कह रहा है खुदा, वो अली थे वो अली हैं, अली रहेंगे सदा। दुरूद भेज मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद पर। जब खुदा को पुकारा अली आ गए, जब अली आ गए जिंदगी आ गई, जिंदगी बंदगी रोशनी आ गई, रोशनी आ गई आ गई आ गई। मौत तेरे मुहिब्बों को आती नहीं, आ भी जाए तो फिर बच के जाती नहीं। मौत से क्या खतर, मौत से क्या है डर, इससे बचना भी क्या आ गई आ गई। जब खुदा को पुकारा अली आ गए, जब अली आ गए जिंदगी आ गई। गुस्ले मैयत न कहना मेरे गुस्ल को, उजले मलबूज को मत कफन नाम दो। मैं चला हूँ अली से मुलाकात को, जिसकी थी आरज़ू वो घड़ी आ गई। जब खुदा को पुकारा अली आ गए, जब अली आ गए जिंदगी आ गई। तेरी मसनद पे गैरों को बिठला दिया, नायबे मुस्तफ़ा मज़हरे किबरिया। तू अलियो वलियो वसी रहा, मंजिलत में तेरी क्या कमी आ गई। जब खुदा को पुकारा अली आ गए, जब अली आ गए जिंदगी आ गई। जिब्राइल और कंबर पा क्या मुँह है सर, दर तेरा छोड़ कर कोई जाता नहीं। जो गुलामी का तेरी मज़ा पा गया, रास जिसको तेरी नौकरी आ गई। जब खुदा को पुकारा अली आ गए, जब अली आ गए जिंदगी आ गई। खुम्स देना मवद्दत की एक शर्त है, और ना देना भी मिसले फिदक है गुनाह। हक के सादा तो ज़हरा के मकरूज से जब तबर्रा सुना तो हंसी आ गई। जब खुदा को पुकारा अली आ गए, जब अली आ गए जिंदगी आ गई। या अली पारदिगड़ सरवात।
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين شهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليك يا علي زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد الباكر، السلام عليك يا جعفر الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى الكاظم، السلام عليك يا علي الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد التكي الجواد، السلام عليك يا علي النكي الهادي، السلام عليك يا حسن العسكري، السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان الأمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل وليا وحافظا وكائدا وناصرا ودليلا وأهنا حتى تسكنه أرضك توءا وتمتيه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.